What's up everybody, Nate here, and it's no secret that the housing market in the United States has been absolutely insane over the last couple of years. Prices in the housing market are incredibly high as the median price of a home hit around $400,000 in 2022. Meanwhile, you've got mortgage interest rates hitting at around 7% right now, nearly triple where they were at the start of 2022. And right now, many are saying that this is the most unaffordable housing market that has pretty much ever existed in American history. So that got me thinking, what if there was an alternative way to go out and buy a house instead of using straight cash or going through your traditional means of getting a mortgage and signing a 30-year long contract? What if you went a different route and tried to buy a house with Bitcoin? Well, it turns out that idea wasn't as crazy as I initially thought, and there actually is an entire market for this. That's when I got the crazy idea, what if I tried to buy a house not with cash but with Bitcoin? Well, here's what I found along the way and everything else you need to know about buying a house but with Bitcoin. Step one, you need to actually find a house. So there are a lot of different places out there that you can search for a home. You can drive around your local neighborhood. Of course, you can go on sites like realtor.com and Zillow, but you need to actually find a house, and you need to find a house that you can afford. Now, when it comes to buying a home with cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, it's a little bit different because, like I said before, there actually already is a market for this. There are two major sites that you can purchase a home using Bitcoin right now. First site that I saw was a site called Picasso. Now, you can go out and actually buy a second home or a vacation home with cryptocurrency, and that includes Bitcoin. The second option here is a site called condos.com, and it allows you to do the exact same thing. If you want to buy a house that you're going to live in with cryptocurrency, you can do that. Or if you want to buy a vacation home, a second home, you name it, you can do it with using Bitcoin. Condos.com is a little bit interesting too because you can buy pre-construction homes. So these are homes that are currently in the works, and it allows you to actually get into the market a little bit early and then buy that place before the market sort of takes off, and a lot of people want to rent it. So those are a few options, but basically what you need to know here is you're looking for something, you're looking for a place that is going to allow you to use your cryptocurrency, a non-traditional asset, to buy a more traditional asset like a house or a condo or a townhome, whatever it may be. So you want to find a place that is currently available for sale, but the most important thing here is you have to try to find somebody who is willing to take in your Bitcoin as payment. Now, I found this is kind of the most difficult part of the entire process because people either love crypto or they hate crypto. Now, you might be able to find a seller out there who is way in on cryptocurrency, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to buy a home if somebody is really interested in cryptocurrency. In fact, they may even actually be willing to give you a discount just because they want cryptocurrency that bad and they don't really trust the US dollar or traditional currencies or any government-backed currency right now. Step two, if you can actually find somebody that is willing to accept Bitcoin as an acceptable payment method for buying their house, then the second thing that you're going to have to do is figure out a way to actually get the Bitcoin over to them. Now, there are two major ways to do this. The first is using an offline hard wallet. So this is something that has an internal storage that you can actually take all of your Bitcoin from the online world into the offline world. This is now in cold storage, and since it's offline, you can basically do whatever you want with it. Now the transaction becomes as simple as anything else. Now all you have to do is give that cold wallet over to the seller, and then they will have the Bitcoin that they need to actually give you the house. The other thing you can do, which is a lot simpler, but it just depends on who you're working with, you can actually sell your cryptocurrency or convert some of it into cash. Once you convert it into cash, now you can pretty much do whatever you want with it like it'd be a normal mortgage. So like I said, you can approach the seller directly, or now that you have some cash, you can pretty much go to any mortgage broker like a bank or a credit union, and they can try to sell you a mortgage so you can use that to purchase the home. Kind of a risky thing to do if you want to keep your cryptocurrency and you don't want to convert it over into cash, but your seller really doesn't want crypto either. Well, you can technically borrow against cryptocurrency depending on how much you have. You can leverage this asset and take on debt in order to use that debt to buy a home. And the third step is just to move along the entire process like you normally would whether you were using cash or any other type of asset. I do want to caution you here that whether you're using Bitcoin or you're using cash to buy a house, make sure that you can afford this home. A lot of millennials and Gen Z who have purchased homes over the last couple of years, well, they found out the hard way that buying a home is an extensive process, and owning a home in general is extremely expensive. There are a lot of costs associated with owning a home. Just going through the mortgage process yourself, well, you've got closing costs, and also you could possibly have an escrow account that you have to pre-fill with thousands of dollars before you even move into the house. Not to mention, you've got utilities, and if something breaks on the house, that is up to you to fix it. But at the same time, there is a huge reason why demand has exploded for buying homes over the last couple of years. There is a certain freedom that comes with buying a a house, and many people have realized that that freedom is worth the price. Not to mention, you can do whatever you want with your house. It is your property, including if you wanted to sell it in the future for cryptocurrency. And this is one of the biggest sticking points for many people right now who are considering buying a house with Bitcoin in 2023. Houses continue to have value in the United States. That has pretty much been the trend for the last 50 or 60 years or so. And one of the biggest reasons why is because houses are a finite resource. It might sound kind of crazy right now, but we are building houses at an exponential rate. And at the end of the day, there is only so much room in the United States that you can build a house. And eventually that room is going to run out, meaning there's going to be a time where not that many homes can be built. So there is a tangible amount of homes. We have not reached the maximum yet. We're nowhere even close to reaching the maximum yet. But one day that max is going to be here. A lot of people can see that comparison with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency because there is a maximum amount of Bitcoins that can be created. Once Bitcoin has reached around 21 million coins, well, that's it. That is all the amount that is out there. So in theory, as long as there is demand for the coins and there is a finite amount of them out there, then the value should always go up. But like I said, that is just completely a theory. And at the end of the day, if people completely lose all their trust in cryptocurrency, well, then that asset could essentially go to zero. That's why there is always a risk no matter what you buy. And that includes houses. We don't know if there's always going to be a huge demand for houses in the United States. And one day your house could be completely worthless and you're not going to have to worry about getting cash or crypto for it. But the crazy thing is there are already people out there who have been buying houses with cryptocurrency. I'm pretty sure I watched a video from Gary V a couple weeks ago that buyers could actually offer an NFT contract to live in their home. When I was sort of researching this, I found that there are actually some pretty big deals just in the past as well with people purchasing huge real estate properties with cryptocurrency. I'm going to put up a few on the screen right now and I'm going to read a couple of these. In 2014, a buyer purchased land in the Lake Tahoe area for an estimated $1.6 million. To date, the most expensive home sold through a cryptocurrency transaction is a magnificent Miami penthouse listed at $22.5 million. So the bottom line here, if there is demand for it, then there is probably a market for it as well. So it's not an if here, it is definitely just finding the right buyer, finding the right market, or finding the right website. And like I said before, I think the biggest sticking point when it comes to buying a home with cryptocurrency is that you're not working within the traditional means anymore, because the traditional means have gotten way unaffordable and unreachable for many Americans. That is exactly why cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum exist in the first place, right? Because they work outside our traditional government-backed currency, which means they play by their own rules. And in theory, those cryptos are supposed to be for the people, by the people. So access to money should be a whole lot easier when you're using Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like I said, that is one of the biggest pros that people have been working with. And one of the other biggest pros is that when you buy a house with cryptocurrency, well, now you don't have to go through the traditional mortgage process. So more often than not, you're going to work directly with a seller here or a real estate company. And that means that the process could be a whole lot quicker when you buy that house. Not to mention with Bitcoin's Lightning Network, well, if you want to transfer over that payment to a seller, it could be instantaneous versus if you try to write a check, if you try to give somebody traditional dollars, well, that transaction could take weeks to months to actually go through. And like I said, when you work with a mortgage company, it is an entirely different process. I remember when I bought my house back in 2020, well, the amount of paperwork that we had to go through took literal hours and days. Most buyers are not going to understand that process fully, especially if you're a first-time homeowner. That means there's a lot of contracts, there's a lot of paperwork that you're signing, but you really don't know what it all means. Now, like I said, the con to that is if you're trying to buy a home really quickly and you want to close very fast, well, the fastest you can close is at least 30 days. It takes a long time to go through the traditional mortgage process. It takes a long time to sign all of those papers. The reason it takes a long time, though, is because the bank and the real estate company, and more importantly, the seller, want to make sure that you can actually buy this house. They want to check what you have in your savings. They want to know how that money got there. They want to make sure that you have a job. They want to make sure that you have assets and the ability to pay back a loan or just buy the house in general. They want to make sure you have all of this. That is very important as well, because if you don't, then you run into a situation like we saw in 2007 where banks and financial institutions were giving out mortgages, but they really weren't checking who was buying these homes. And eventually people realized that they could not afford the homes they were buying, and we saw mass defaults. So that due diligence has to be there. And as cryptocurrency sort sort of evolves and as people get a little bit more used to using it, there is a potential that we could see even just sellers and real estate companies do a lot more due diligence in that way when somebody approaches a seller trying to buy a house with crypto. One of the biggest cons though in our traditional market right now is if you want to buy a house, well, you pretty much have to go through the mortgage process. Even if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars saved up, well, most of the time you can't really use that money as a down payment or to just flat out buy the house. You usually have to get some amount of a mortgage. Now, obviously that is not always the case. If you have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in a bank account, well, then it's a little bit more secure and the bank can actually look at that and figure out where that money came from. But if they can't, then they're gonna have a hard time giving you a mortgage. But what's worse is even if you have $100,000 in cash, you can't really just take that cash and go buy a house. You have to go through the traditional means of putting it in the bank first and having the bank verify it and then having the mortgage company verify it. There is a whole process that you have to go through, and that is a deterrent for a lot of Americans. Using Bitcoin though, it might be a whole lot easier because you can just transfer the funds over to the seller and now they have the Bitcoin that they want in order to facilitate the sale. And it really could be that easy. Now, like I said, that creates a lot of problems, but with the right circumstances, in the right situation with the buyer and seller, well, this could be the perfect relationship. And it could help you to buy a home super quickly. Now, I went through this entire process myself and found a house on Zillow kind of in my area and reached out to the seller and tried to buy their house with Bitcoin. And unfortunately, I was immediately rejected. Now, this is going to happen a lot, and if you try to do this, this is going to be a very tricky situation because very few people have done it in 2023. It is very new. Cryptocurrency in general is very new, and there's going to be a lot of people who are very reluctant to take it as a payment. But don't get discouraged because even if you can't work directly with the seller or a mortgage company to buy a house with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, there is still one other thing that you can do. Like I said before, you can convert your Bitcoin into cash and you can use that for a mortgage or you can use that for a down payment. But beyond that, if you have an asset and you have a ton of Bitcoin that you want to use as a payment method to pay back your mortgage, well, you can absolutely do that. All you need to do is continue to convert that Bitcoin. That is exactly what an asset is supposed to do for you. It is supposed to grow your wealth and it's there when you need it. Now, if I'm being completely honest with you, my goal of this video was not to actually go out and buy a house with Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. To be completely transparent with you, I don't own enough Bitcoin to actually buy a house, but I wanted to see if it was really possible. And the answer is, it is totally 100% possible to buy a house with Bitcoin in 2023. But like I said before, that doesn't necessarily mean you should do that. I think if the conditions are right and you have the right seller and the right buyer, then yeah, it can be a great exchange. And I think in the future, this could be something that picks up with speed, especially as Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies kind of find a second wind here in 2023. But for others, it might make a lot more sense to go out and get a traditional mortgage and to do things a more traditional way. And to be honest with you, there is nothing wrong with that. Just like there's nothing wrong with buying something with Bitcoin. It's really just going to depend on the situation. It's going to depend on the person. But money is changing and so is our economy. And I think the number one lesson that we can take away from all of this is that you sort of have to continue to adapt your money and your asset strategy and everything else in your life if you want to be financially successful in 2023 and beyond. Back in the day, we used to have pensions and people had one job for pretty much their entire life and they were able to retire. But today, our economy has changed. Our financial system has changed. And if you try to go down that route, you're not going to see financial success. You're probably just going to lose. So people have adapted their strategy. They've adapted their investing styles in order to have that same life in 2023 and beyond. People are now starting to apply that to other markets, including the housing market. And like I said before, people are looking at it from a different lens. They're trying to figure out how to subvert the system. They're not just saying, well, houses are too expensive and they're unaffordable, so I can never have one. They're trying to figure out a way to get it done no matter what. If you really want it, then try to figure out a way to get it done no matter the circumstances. I'm not condoning buying a house with cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or whatever else you may have. Buy a house that you can afford. Make sure you understand the purchase beforehand and always do your own due diligence when buying something or investing. And please never listen to a random guy on the internet, and that includes me. As always, do what makes the most sense for you and your financial plan, and if that includes Bitcoin, then great. But if not, then that's okay too. That is it for me, everybody. Be kind out there, and I'll see you all in the next one.